Welcome to Sakshi TV special immigration talk show with attorneys. For today's show, we have lawyer Srinivas Kaveti on our show. Please note that Sakshi TV now has four immigration shows every week. On Tuesdays with Mr. Kaveti, on Wednesdays with Prashanti Reddy in English, on Thursdays with Chand Parvat Neni, and on Fridays with Banu Nidra. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you are an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email us at usa@sakshi.com or call us at 866-725-7441. Before we begin the show, please note that the information provided on the show is not legal advice and for general informational purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for the use of information. If you need any specific legal advice, you can definitely contact the lawyer directly. You can definitely log on to their firm, which is Kaveti Law Firm, which is headquartered in New York City and has branches all over the world, including countries like Asia, Europe, North America. So without any further delay, let's welcome him onto our show. Kaveti Garu, welcome back. I hope you're doing well.
Yes, thanks for having me, Shivani.
Yes, it's wonderful having you on our show. So today we are going to be discussing, this kind of like a continuation about our previous shows, how these H1B fraud, lotteries have been done. But before that, do we have any immigration updates, or do you want me to like completely start with the topic?
Well, I mean, what is happening for past 1 to 2 weeks. I've done some videos on my YouTube, Kaveti Law YouTube channel. We have done some videos on, H1B fraud and what immigration is doing in terms of investigation. And we have been receiving a lot of calls, Shivani, that companies are receiving notice to intend to, revocation. They're revoking the visas, which is a bad news. And they've already started investigation from last year, this year. And a lot of we have received calls of a firm that a lot of people who, after getting the H1B done, they're coming to America. At the port of entry, they're getting deported after coming to America. The other sad news is some people are getting, revoked and deported from Abu Dhabi because they also take Etihad Airways and people are coming from Abu Dhabi. There's an immigration office there. And a lot of them who already come into the country, like husbands coming and wives coming before, and they've been here for 3, 4 months. And they're getting letters from the immigration saying that you guys have done a multiple, filings, so we are revoking it. And there's some companies which they're not cooperating with the employees. They also filed some multiple applications without the knowledge of employees. Even the employers are receiving notices. They've already started law enforcement, and these employers are not providing those, notice to intend to revoke to the employees. That's a bad news. And we're getting a lot of calls saying that these employers are saying, okay, there's another company, we'll file your H1B. And some employees are very scared that they want to change their status to F1. They're wondering whether they can go on an F1. And some employees, they want to go back. So a whole heap of, questions from all over the world. And people are pretty scared, actually. And, this we have not seen it in the past. And the USCIS has already started enforcement of immigration laws. And we haven't heard anybody getting criminally prosecuted. I guess that would be the next step. I mean, and they have started accepting the H1B petitions filings and things like that. So it's a pretty heavy in America what's happening. And looking at the economy and looking at this immigration crisis now with H1B, all over the world, people have applied for many, many consulting companies. So that's been the update, and we're getting calls, and some of them, our firm is advising that they can write to the immigration, and if they can become a victim, if they can show that they're a victim, there could be some possibility they would process on a case-to-case basis. There is some room, at least, that they can stay in the country. So there's so many factors involved. So
Yes.
those are. little update what we've been receiving the past 10 days.
Yes. So, Mr. Kaveti, these kind of, you just said that you are receiving so many calls from people asking for help because they are getting deported or they're getting arrested, and not just, deported in the USA, but also Abu Dhabi. So, what kind of remedies do you think people are expecting, especially the viewers, when they're falsely being accused or, they're falsely being claimed? Why do you think this whole issue has started from the beginning? Let's just give, a recap to the viewers watching the show.
Unfortunately, Shivani, once you're deported, there's no remedy, to be honest with you. When you're deported from overseas, there's no remedy. Why? Because you did not enter into American soil. You don't have any constitutional rights. And you don't have immigration rights as well because you're not in the country. And people who have already come into United States, those who are here, and their visas are getting revoked. The basic meaning, Black Law Dictionary's meaning of revocation means cancellation of your visa. Once your visa is cancelled, what remedy you have? That you don't have, you cannot go to immigration court and challenge it like any other cases you can challenge. If your constitutional rights are infringed, you can go to the federal courts. And if you're wrongly deported or removed, you can go to the federal court and challenge it. But when somebody is on a non-immigrant visa, H1B, or a student visa or an H1B, if your visa is being revoked, what remedy you have? Except, if you're married or if you have a wife and children, or if you have a mother, father, they can petition you. But other than that, because if you're on a removal proceeding, if the judge orders you removed, then you can only, fight for not to be removed by filing some other petitions. I mean, people file marriage petitions, families are there, they will file, family petitions, and sometimes people file applications under the extraordinary ability. Some people might invest $1 million and they might say, okay, we want to stay in the country. But once you're an immigration violator and your visa has been revoked, it's pretty tough, except a marriage. And if you're thrown out of the country, that you have some rights as per the immigration constitutional law. Other than that, there are no remedies. I mean, sometimes what happens if you're a victim of a Ponzi scheme or a immigration fraud scheme or a human trafficking or something like that, you could petition to the government that you're a victim. Your visa. That's all basically. And the burden of proof is on you. It's not that easy that you're a victim of a crime. So, I mean, there are some clients, they were calling our firm that, and then our firm lawyers are advising them saying, if you're really a victim of a crime perpetrated by your employer, then you can petition to the government for a U visa. You can take the protection of the, USCIS. That's only remedy. Otherwise, within the stipulated time, once your visa is revoked, you have to go back to your country. And the unfortunate thing is, once you go back to your country, I mean, only under the extraordinary circumstances you can ask for a waiver. But other than that, there are no remedies, to be honest with you. It's actually a bad news.
Yes. Mr. Kaveti, what actually happened. I think this is for the viewers that I'm talking about. It was, last month where USCIS found out that there are multiple H1B registration, and that is when they started taking these kind of actions that are happening in the USCIS. So let's talk about the fraud registration that were happening, Mr. Kaveti. A lot of people were applying multiply, and in the last episode, we discussed about how this is not just an immigration law, but it's a civil, law, and you will be punished accordingly to that. Is that is it just because of the fraud, registrations that we find out that the rules have been become so strict, and now some people who are not, who did not commit that amount of crime are still getting affected by it?
Well, one must understand, Shivani, that when the employer is filing an application, there is an attestation saying that that you're not, as an employer, you have not filed multiple registrations. And if you have a knowledge that the employee has done multiple registrations, you're, as an employer or as a lawyer who's helping them, they have to attest. What does that mean? That means you're on oath, you're saying, under the penalty of perjury. That means on oath, you're telling the immigration is a federal agency. And what does it mean? It's a sovereign, it's a government. So you're telling a lie to the government. So what they're saying, that one is fraud, second is misrepresentation. Well, fraud is that you have your own, you have few companies in your own premises, or your friends have companies, or your family has few companies, and you're making multiple registrations, and you have a knowledge that you're doing it. And two, sometimes the clients, the employees, the beneficiaries, they come to the company and they're not disclosing that they're filing from other companies. See, the issue always goes, in this is whether is it a legitimate bona fide job offer. See, people could have multiple offers. There's nothing wrong in it. Because this is employer is petitioning. But is it a legitimate job offer, or are they giving some money to file a petition? See, these are constitute to fraud. If you're giving money and filing it when you don't have a legitimate job offer. And two, you're misrepresenting. You see, as a beneficiary, you're coming to the employer and saying, "Oh, I did not file from anybody. I'm only filing from you." On the contrary, you're paid money to some other people, and they're filing it. So that constitutes to fraud. What is the definition of fraud under the common law? An intent to defraud. What is the intent to defraud means? You have an intention. That means you have a knowledge. You're doing it intentionally. And intent to defraud means what? You are telling untrue statement when you know you have a knowledge and you have a belief. That's an untrue statement, and you're intentionally doing it. So that's called intent to defraud. And the other thing is, misrepresentation. If you're not having any intent to defraud, you're not having any intention to commit a fraud in federal government. But if you're just misrepresenting, at least you're saying that, "Oh no, I did not file from anybody else. I'm only filing from your company." That itself is a misrepresentation. Misrepresentation and fraud, these are civil wrongs under the tort law, and they're also criminally wrong. They're because you have an intention to defraud the government, and you have an intention to misrepresent the fact. Why you're misrepresenting the fact? To take an unfair advantage. That is the word which is used in the law. You are unfairly taking an advantage to get your candidature picked up. So that itself is misrepresentation. They're saying, the government is saying, there's a heavy burden on the employer and there's a heavy burden on the employee. That means the burden is on you to prove, saying that, "Hey, I did not misrepresent." And two, "Hey, I am not intentionally defrauding you." It's not easy to prove yourself that you did not intentionally do it. So burden is on the employer and the burden is on the employee. So what they're saying, and further in that attestation, they're saying, if the immigration comes to know, even though it is an immigration law, which is an administrative law, because there are elements of crime, fraud is an element of crime. Misrepresentation is a fraudulent act. If you're committing fraud, then we will send you to the law enforcement. That means it's going to be a penal offenses as against the federal government. You're not doing on a state or city. You're committing on a federal government. So that means we will go after you, because under the federal, there is state penal laws, there are federal penal laws. It is not like India that only Indian penal code is there in all over India. There are no state penal codes in our country. But in US, there are state penal codes and federal penal codes. That means if you're committing an offense under the federal law, you're liable to be punished. It's called felonies. So, so you better don't joke with the federal government, and don't lie because you're making an oath, because the immigration is giving an access to their website, to the employers, and it's all there. And so better don't make a false statement. Making a false statement itself is an offense. It's called perjury. What is perjury? Lying on oath is a perjury. So one is a fraud, which is an offense. Second is misrepresentation, is another offense. And these are civil wrongs. And third thing, you're lying on oath is also a perjury. That's also an offense. So you're committing offenses, three offenses, by just lying on oath. So that means you're liable to be punished. So that's the reason they have to be careful. And employees will be punished, employers will be punished. So the other thing is law enforcement means you could be criminally prosecuted. What is criminal prosecution means? They could take you and put you on trial and they could send you in jail. So there's a jail term. So not only just penalizing or administrative law violation under the immigration law, but there's a serious thing is, it's a, not violation, it's a crime under the federal law. So one has to be, very careful when they're doing such things because unfortunately, most of the IT guys, these consultants who have done MS computer science and those who are IT guys and the companies which are run by the IT guys, they are not aware of the law. They don't understand the law. And because it's a separate subject. And these people not understanding when they're doing mistakes by omission or by not understanding, you can't take that as a defense because ignorance of law is not a defense. So whether you know it or without knowledgeable, knowingly, unknowingly, even if you say, "Oh, I've done something unknowingly," bad luck, go to jail. So it's very tough, and you must understand you're in United States of America. This is the most advanced country on the earth. The reason is because I was lucky enough to study law in India. I was lucky enough to study law in England and lucky enough to study in Australia and in New York, in US. The US laws are very advanced and because they're constantly doing research. So they will not leave any stone unturned. So that's the reason there are severe penalties. So that's where it is now. And we're all in, everybody's in crisis now. A lot of lawyers, a lot of visa consultants, a lot of these blogs, a lot of people are talking without having enough understanding of federal law. They one I was also watching some of the shows. They're saying, oh, you can change the employer, you can file from another employer, nothing happens. That is not true. And some of them they're coming and saying, oh, if I get a revocation notice, can I go and get a student visa? Oh, can I go out of the country and come back with an F1? See, once you're an immigration violator, whether you're an employer or an employee, what will happen? You are a violator. That means you have committed an offense under the immigration law. You're not allowed to come back again. You're not allowed to change the status. You're not allowed to get any benefits in immigration law. That is the law. That's what immigration law says. So it's a bad luck, bad move. And people have been, some people have been asking, oh, my employer has said I can do it, or nothing will happen. Immigration is not harsh. No, they're coming. They're coming. They started already from last year. This year also they'll do it. They're doing it. So whoever your viewers are, take this very seriously. They can also go and do some research. And there's a lot of information is there in USCIS websites. They should read it and try to understand it and be careful because if you go ahead and file it when you're a multiple filer, what will happen? You could be in a student visa. If you did not file, there's no injury. If you file, that means you're in the system. So you could be penalized. If you don't file, you have not availed your opportunity and you have not, got any gain out of it. So you could not be hit with any penalties.
So, Mr. Kaveti, what is the most common questions? You yourself, you are not just an immigration lawyer. You are, you are a lawyer who deal with so many other, issues too. So you said, when we were discussing on call that, we have so many people coming, asking us for help and asking us for remedies. What is the one common question that people have done, and what, according to you, was a mistake that all of them have done, and suggestions that you want to give to the viewers, saying, okay, these people have done this specific thing, and what is your take on that?
The first thing is, multiple registrations, Shivani. The employers had a knowledge and they have done multiple registrations. That's the biggest, mistake what they've done. And of course, employees, they were desperate. They want to get their, visa picked up in lottery. And, they've been trying for many years. So the other thing is filing multiple registrations when it is not a bona fide job offer. When I said legitimate bona fide job offer means they paid many employers to apply. And, many employers also didn't have enough job, but small companies, they went and filed 100 applications, 50 applications. So they didn't have so much of work, but they still went and filed. That was not a legitimate job offer. So when there was no legitimate job offer, how can you apply? When you know that your company cannot support. So, these are the mistakes what the employers have done and employees have done. And even, I mean, employers and employees, they didn't take it seriously, that attestation. They thought because 4 or 5 years people have been doing, so they've done it in this year. So that's an unfortunate thing. And people have been asking us questions, what if, what should we do? Should we drop? So our firm, our qualified immigration lawyers have been advising them, saying that, please don't file. Because if you don't file, at least you're not in the system. Can they file next year? The answer is maybe yes. So the other
Yes.
questions we're normally getting is, are they going to have another round of, lottery pickup? But USCIS has not been very clear whether they're going to have a second lot, may or may not. It depends upon how many applications they have now. With this mess, a lot of employers are not going to file. A lot of employees are not going to file. So there's a possibility that they might do another round of pickup. And when they do it again, so they could be the same companies and they could be the same employees, doing it from other companies. So there could be multiple filings as well, the same crisis again. So we don't know how the immigration is going to tackle this crisis because it's the first time. There's no regulations or any guidelines on USCIS website.
Yes. So, but what is your take, Mr. Kaveti? Now that you've been a lawyer for so long, in what ways can the viewers watching the show, or people who have gotten a notice from the USCIS, can take to further not get into bad things, or, forever get deported?
Well, the first and foremost thing is once they get this notice to intent, that mostly the employers gets that. My suggestion to all the employers, they should cooperate with the employees and give them the copy of it. And once they get the copy, they should contact some competent immigration lawyers in their own respective areas. They should contact. They should ask them, what is my remedy now? See, they should not contact people who are not specialized in immigration law because, and there are some lawyers who also do criminal, Fed criminal law. So they should also contact, companies, they should contact some federal criminal lawyers so that they can be defended tomorrow if the immigration does the criminal prosecution. The other thing what, our firm has been advising clients that, if possible, please avoid to file multiple, H1B petitions this year and take a chance for next year. And if your wives are an H1 or if they're an F1 or something, some statuses, go and become their dependents. So, don't try to become desperate and spend money and file it. That's our recommendation. The other thing is, because, if it is going to be criminal, if they're revoking, before they revoke the visa, either file a change of status and explain to the immigration that you have not committed any violation of law, explain them that you've been a victim and change it to another status. Or if you don't want to change another status, you please leave the country because there is at least nothing against you on the passport or on the record. if you leave the country before your, revocation of visa, I mean, at least you're going clean because there's no record on the immigration system or in the Department of even Consular Affairs. Then you could come back on a different visa again. And once your revocation, if you receive a revocation notice, that means you have 30 days to go back. So you better go back. And, there's a strange questions our firm has been getting calls. And some of these guys are becoming so desperate and they're saying, oh, can we file a political asylum at this juncture? The answer is no, you can't file a political asylum because you came on a student visa, spent time here, and you have applied for an H1s and all these things. Now don't become desperate and file political asylums. What happens? It's not credible, first of all. Two, that's not it's a frivolous application. And if you do it, and you're going to get into more trouble. And a lot of kids, students are also calling and asking us, they're saying, oh, we've been here, we have finished 2 masters, and this situation happened. We filed multiple applications. What should we do now? Can we file an asylum application? The answer is no, no, you can't file. Those are going to be frivolous applications, and the applications gets denied. You will be removed from the country, and you will not be able to change to any other status, unfortunately. And you could be even arrested. They could even detain you. So, don't do unlawful things. And some people are saying, oh, can I marry somebody? I mean, if it is a bona fide real marriage, marry. But don't, they ask silly questions. Oh, can I marry somebody by paying? I said, don't do those unlawful things. Because once you get, and these days the immigration has been very stringent, they're investigating, don't do those things. So, follow the law, get in touch with some good immigration lawyers, discuss your options. Because the other problem, what I see with the students and H1B guys, they go online and read blogs. The law is not on the blogs. Get in touch with some immigration lawyers, qualified guys. Go to their offices, take appointments, pay some consultation fees, get some proper legal advice. Don't read online and don't advise your friends next door. These IT consulting company owners, they try to give advices. And the colleagues, sitting, next to him or the roommates, they're saying, or do this, do that. Please don't do that. So my experience, practicing law for 32 years now, educated in 4 different continents, my sincere advice and suggestion to your viewers, get in touch with some qualified guys in your own area, pay them and ask for options. And if the employer is not cooperating, get in touch with some lawyers. Ask your lawyers to get in touch with the employer. Get some basic information, what misrepresentations they made, and protect your, interest, protect your constitutional rights, protect your immigration interest. This
Yes.
country, it's a organized country. They have a system. You have to follow the law, and if
Yes.
you don't, I mean, it'll be okay. That's my suggestion to your viewers.
Yes. I wish nothing but very big all the best to, I wish the best for the people who are going through such crisis. Again, thank you, Mr. Kaveti, for tuning on to our show. It was lovely having you as usual. And thank you to the viewers for tuning in. You're watching Sakshi TV with me, Shivani Raj.